The next topic I want to touch on is how to scope assertions correctly. Let's go ahead and open up the router. If you look in there, we have an avatar live here where we have a path and we take an email and we're going to use Gravatar to generate an avatar for ourselves based on our email. Now, let's go ahead and open up that LiveView. And as you can see, it's actually pretty simple. When we mount it, we're going to use a module we already have to generate the avatar based on the email parameter. And then we're going to assign that URL as an image, and we're just going to render that. So pretty simple. So let's go ahead and now take a look at the test. So I'll go ahead and open up my editor. As you might imagine, that's under test, Ranger Web, live avatar, live test, and there's the done equivalent with all the test examples. Let's go ahead and say, write a test that says renders avatar for an email, for given email. We'll take in the connection struct as usual. And here, let's go ahead and do a little bit of setup. Let's define an email. Now we're going to go ahead and generate an avatar URL for this. And let's go ahead and alias this. So we're going to generate a URL for our assertion. Now let's go ahead and mount the live view just like we did before. We'll ignore the view right now and go ahead and grab the connection struct, and let's get our path, and that's avatar, and we can pass in the email right here. So let's go ahead and assert that the avatar URL is present, right? And this is the most basic test we can make. So let's go ahead and run this, and it passes. Perfect. Now the problem is that this assertion isn't exactly precise, right? It may be fine for an avatar, but maybe an avatar is an important concept in your application, and you want to really make sure that it's an image that's being rendered, right? So what I've seen a lot of people do is they actually hard code the image HTML, or at least part of it, and then assert that that is included in the blob. So let's go ahead and open this up. And if you can see, it has an image tag, a class of avatar, and a source. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that, and let's write another test. Avatar HTML. I'm going to go ahead and paste that and copy the other test. So what I've seen some people do is the following. They might say, let's call this the avatar and create a string of it. Maybe we don't include the closing brackets, but we will include the image tag, the class avatar, and in here we can interpolate the source, right? So we're going to do avatar URL is what we have. And let's close that quote. And then we can assert that this avatar is there. So what are people doing when they do this? This comes out of a desire to be specific about the assertion. So we want to make sure that not only is the avatar URL somewhere in that HTML blob, because technically it could be anywhere in the HTML, not in the image tag. And so people want to assert that specifically they include it in the image tag, so they write something like this. Now, if we run this, this will pass, right? This is actually part of the HTML that is available. The problem with this test is that if you go back to your avatar live and someone else changes this, suppose they call this avatar and they do, they add rounded borders. Now we run the test, and the problem is this will fail. But the test shouldn't fail because we haven't changed anything important in terms of the behavior that we're trying to test. It's an implementation detail, the classes are. And so we want to have a way to write assertions that are specific, but not so coupled to the HTML structure, if that makes sense. So I'm going to delete that, and let's go ahead and write another test. Let's say renders avatar image for given email. That's what we'll call it. And what we'll do here is instead of using this hard-coded HTML thing, we'll use a helper from Phoenix LiveViewTest called hasElement. Now, the hasElement helper takes in a view and a CSS selector and an optional text filter. In this case, we're going to use the CSS selector that allows us to target an image tag with a given source. So I'll go ahead and type this in. And here we're going to say the source has to contain at least this avatar URL. And let me close all these brackets correctly. This should be a parens. All right. Now, as you can tell, we're using the view instead of the HTML blob. And that's one of the nice things about this view element is that we can ask questions of it. We can query it. And has element is a query. So we'll go ahead and rely on the view, ignore the HTML. And I think this is the first time we're doing this. And this gives us a more specific assertion, right? We're asserting that the avatar URL is part of an image source, but at the same time, it's not so coupled to the HTML that we can't change classes. So let's go ahead and run this test. And this should pass. Excellent. And now if we go to the avatar live, if someone goes and adds the class here that was rounded large, and we rerun the tests, this test continues to pass. The other one would have failed, right? So this is a phenomenal assertion helper, and we're going to use it very frequently. Now, this is the first time we're using it, so you may be asking yourself, why is it called hasElement, right? Well, there's another helper that we can use that allows us to abstract these concepts, and let's go ahead and take a look at it. Element for a given email. Just trying to write different text for each test. So let's go ahead and copy this. And what we can do is the element helper takes in a view, a CSS selector, and a text filter. In other words, it takes the same things as the hasElement helper, but it allows us to more clearly abstract some things and rename them. So let's go ahead and name this avatar here. Take in the view, and I'll just go ahead and copy this. And one more parens, and then we can ask LiveView if that avatar is present. Let's go ahead and run this test, make sure it passes. And sure enough, it does. Now, you might be asking, is this element thing helpful? You'll see later that we can combine this element with render functions to make it even more powerful. But for now, I think at least it's given us a more clear test. It's possible that your teammates won't know what this image source CSS selector thing is doing, but by naming it avatar and pulling an element out of it, we actually have communicated with our teammates what we're trying to accomplish. So that's it for this lesson. Wanted to show you how to make more precise assertions with the hasElement helper.